Hi there. So what we've got here is a little activity that's going to help you in your desktop research, particularly in synthesizing the large amounts of information that you're going to be researching for your particular topic. So what we've got here is a template of a synthesis table. And what we find that is a lot of students find there's a lot of utility, a lot of usefulness in this table in collating all the information that they have to identify common themes and common aspects of what the research is suggesting is important. So why this will become important is if you look to your rubric, we've signposted to you that what we're looking for is rigorous support for the use of your theory and why it's useful and what are some of the common things, common findings that have suggested why it's an important theory or a useful theory to understand a similar problem. So what we've started with here is an example of how to use the table, and we'll walk through this, and I'll also show you how to research quickly and how to populate this table quite quickly as well. So what we have here is a set of columns, our authors and year, so that's just like your normal in-text citation, the theory which is used by the paper, and if we've used the Google Scholar tips in our previous video, you'll see that we might be a bit strategic and simply search for the theory of planned behaviour or whatever our framework might be. Method. Now, we're going to go through this a little bit later in the semester, but shortly in the video, I'll show you where you can find some of this information to populate. The sample, what we mean by the sample, and again, this is a topic we go a little bit later on in the semester, but we're starting to collate that information to help bring those topics to life when we go through them later. That's simply the people that have been researched, whether that be the people that fill out surveys or the people that we may have interviewed. So we can see here that's 145 senior marketing managers. Then we also have the summary of the key findings. Now, don't worry, all this information here is nearly like a cut and paste. So let's have a look through how we can look through a paper very quickly and put together these rows within about 2 to 3 minutes if we know where to look. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get out of the Word document. I'm going to show you how, if we were to search for things in Google Scholar, how we can populate this table quickly. So going to Google Scholar, and you might recall we did a similar search in our Google Scholar Tips video. So let's just say that my particular topic is on sustainability. I'm interested in the theory of planned behaviour framework, and my operation or the decision that has to be made is marketing based. Let's say I scanned through the first two. I didn't like them so much, but I do like this paper in particular. Okay, so what I've done is I've opened it, and this is where we can start to populate our table. Okay, so there's our last name, there's our year. If we were to jump back into our desktop research, there it is. Forge was 2011. And if we were to go back, theory of planned behaviour is there as well. So we can even tell that by the title. What is the most important part, and what I want to recommend to you, is to not read all the papers in full. It's a summary table. It's a high-level findings. All you'll need to read is, in good papers, is simply the abstract, okay? So if we're looking through and reading the abstract, look, data were collected from 145 senior managers from a range of industrial sectors in Bangladesh. If I was to go back to our synthesis table, the sample, there we go. We can just populate, place that in there. Summary of the findings. Well, abstracts, a good abstract does that, and we can see the structural paths. Well, that's simply saying the results show that attitude and subjective norms, other than perceived behavioural control, positively affect intentions to practice. Now, those are all the components of the theory, but that's just suggesting to us what's important. Excellent. Well, that's again 2 dot points or a couple of dot points that we can put in, and we haven't even read the whole article yet. The only thing that we might need to read further is looking at the method specifically. So how they collected the research data. Did they do it via an online survey? Did they do it via a telephone survey, interviews, or focus groups? Now, you don't need to read through the full article. A good article is structured well, and you can bypass the introduction. What you want to do is go all the way down, and then if it's a good paper, it will have a methodology section and tell you simply how is the data collected. So when we're reading through, it will show you telephone calls were made to randomly selected firms. So that indicates that they used a telephone survey to collect their data. So we can go back and there's telephone survey. Now, obviously, I've gone through that quite quickly because being a researcher myself, I've done this process many times, but you'll get quicker as you go and the more that you practice. What I'd suggest is that you try and populate in a study session, adding 2 or 3 papers per study session. That way you start to collate your table. And the next process, that as you start to put your table together, look at the table from a bird's eye view. Look at what the common things are. What's the common theory that's being used? What's the common method? What's the common sample? What are some of the key or the common findings? Do they keep finding the same thing, or is everything a little bit different? This is where you're going to do some rigorous and synthesized analysis, and this table will provide you the information for that. So that way, when you're doing your section on theory and framework, you can refer to this table and say, look, here's all the information here. And from a synthesis of all these research findings, this is what I can see. This is my interpretation of what's been done in prior research, and this is why I'm going to do what I'm suggesting in my particular proposed study. So we hope that this little video provides you some hints and tips, again, to speed up your process of going through the task and enabling you to provide some really critical analysis of some of the research that's been done in your area.